So, how's everybody feeling, first and foremost? You sleepy? Got a couple thumbs up. It's okay. All right. Well, we're happy to see you all. My name is Stan Robinson. My professional name is Substantial, and I am here with Sharon Ingram. She is the executive director of the Recording Academy here in Washington, D.C. And I'll pass it to her. Let her take it from there.
Hi. As he said, my name is Sharon Ingram. I'm the executive director for the D.C. chapter of the Recording Academy, which is D.C., Maryland, Virginia, and West Virginia. And this is our second year here. Talking about membership in the Recording Academy, because we now do have a Grammy for Best Gaming Music. So we just want to make sure people are aware of the Recording Academy opportunity. It's really a membership organization. So if you are a musician or artist, a working music professional, you can apply for membership and take advantage of all of the things that we do locally and nationally. So we have a little slideshow, and I'm just going to walk everyone through the process, and please feel free. We have such a small group. We can raise your hand, ask questions whenever. It's pretty straightforward, but we'll just explain. So like I said, the Recording Academy is a membership organization. Okay, cool. And there are 3 membership types, which are voting, professional, and Grammy U. Voting membership is for creators. It is for the people who actually are in the studio or in whatever medium they do, making the recording, so or the film or whatever. So it's artists, it's engineers, it's producers, it's composers, anyone that is involved in the creative process, the actual creative process of recording. You can apply for voting membership. So that's type 1. Type 2 is professional. Professional members of the Recording Academy are those who work, I guess some would say behind the scenes, but work in service to the artist or to the recording. So it would be your music managers, publicists, label execs, music supervisors, music educators, which is really important. Those people are invited to apply for professional membership. The professional members have all of the same privileges of voting members, except they don't vote in the recording. They don't vote in the Grammy process. So they are able to submit for work for Grammy consideration, but you can't vote. It's an artist-based award or artist-votist award. So. And then there's Grammy U. Grammy U is for for those pursuing a career in music. So if you're not quite working full time, if you haven't achieved enough credits and you're between the ages of 18 and 30, you can apply for Grammy U. You don't have to be in college. We changed that rule about 2 years ago. You just have to be a young professional, a young aspiring music professional to apply for Grammy U, and they do a lot of great work as well. They do a lot of career development. They have job boards. They have their own programming. So it's a pretty great membership as well, and it's, I think, one of the best music organizations you can be in as a young person. Is $50 for 4 years, and then you can stay in Grammy U till you're 30 years old, and you just pay another $50 after your first year. You have to pay every year, so it's pretty awesome. So, as a member, you can submit work and you can vote. As a voting member, you can vote for the Grammy Award. You can propose amendments or propose awards. Members are able to write proposals that change the Grammy Award process. Our chapter has wrote the proposal that became the best song for music, best song for social change. So you can literally submit ideas for Grammy Awards or change definitions. Every Grammy Award has a definition and what what is required for that award, so you can propose amending certain things. So you can do that. Each chapter has a local board. You can run for board service that ladders up to the national board. So you can serve on the board, and you can participate in our programming. It's a membership organization, so most of our programs are members only. So you'll be invited to all of our programs locally and nationally. Not all, but like you can attend those programs. And then what most people don't know is that we do all of these other things under the Recording Academy umbrella. So the Recording Academy is the parent company to the Grammy Awards, Latin Grammys, our advocacy team that legislates on behalf of creators year-round, the Grammy Museum, which is charged with preserving musical history, Grammy U, as I mentioned earlier, and Music Cares, which is our nonprofit arm that services and provides support to the music community in need. Like, they've literally, in the last 2 weeks, have already given out over $2 million in relief to artists who were devastated by the LA fires that are displaced. And yeah, they're really working to serve that community around the clock right now. So, you want to add anything?
Yeah, for sure. Just adding on to Music Cares, one of the things that I experienced firsthand, like receiving support from them was when the pandemic happened. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of us are, touring musicians. So literally every venue that we performed at when things were starting, we were the last show at that venue for like a year or a month or however long they were closed, right? And so then all of a sudden the rest of our shows got canceled. So next thing you know, a lot of different organizations, including Music Cares, were offering various forms of support. And so when the holidays rolled around, something they did, like they were giving out gift cards like for hundreds of dollars, just so people could afford to buy groceries, and allow you to kind of use what little money you did have from the biz to do other things for your family. So I've literally benefited from things like that firsthand, but then also like things like healthcare, things that independent professionals oftentimes don't have the same type of access they would have to these things, or at least affordable healthcare, I should say. So we talk about this a lot. I think there are so many benefits to being a part of it, but a lot of the other things that maybe we don't associate with the Grammys or Recording Academy are some of my favorite parts of the work and the membership. So as we talked about Music Cares, but the advocacy part, like the opportunity to meet with lawmakers directly and advocate on behalf of the music community. I've shown up for Advocacy Day a couple of different times, and just being able to speak to people who sometimes have musicians in their family, but have no idea why. And I guess, can I give like a short story? Sure. So at the last Advocacy Day, the guy seemed excited to talk to us, and he mentions how, he has a son who DJs, and his son just had his first major gig. There was roughly 600 people there, and he was so proud. He's showing us pictures on his phone. He's like, yeah, so I appreciate what you guys do. I'm like, yeah, cool, that's cool. I'm just, and then later in the conversation, when we started talking about certain challenges, and I'm explaining the numbers to him and what we get, what we don't get, and I was like, let me ask you this, because your son's still in school, right? And he confirmed that he was, and I was like, right. So if your son decided to pause school, right, to go ahead and do this DJ thing full time, or be a musician, producer full time, would you be in support of that? A hush falls upon the room. He couldn't jump out, especially knowing what we were explaining to him. And so part of what we had to remind him is that a good amount of their constituents are like part-time musicians. They're guys who do gigs on the weekend. They're people who are performing here at MAGFest, right? They are people who are providing background music at like restaurants you're at, and grossly underpaid for their time. Grossly underpaid for their time, which makes it extremely difficult for them to just dedicate their lives to this thing they love a lot. And I think a lot of them have no idea how many people that applies to, right? So, you know, these are powerful conversations that we sometimes have, like behind closed doors, or, you know, or like sometimes go down on the hill and lobby. But these are like very important conversations that I just think the public doesn't really know, like how much work the Recording Academy puts in on that side of things. So I just want to stress that, like for those of you who think it's really just about voting, there's a lot of other things that are happening behind the scenes that the public doesn't really gossip about when they're unhappy about who's someone getting an award. You know, it's a lot more to what we do.
Thank you. Oops. All right, so the membership process. So, the membership process. So to apply for membership into the Recording Academy, first you have to get 2 letters of recommendations from music industry professionals that you have worked with. It's a very simple digitized form. You send you a link. The people just, you know, they just put basically what they do, their social media, their websites or whatever, just showing that they do this work, and then they write a letter of recommendation on your behalf. So you have to get 2 of those, and then
From people who are members. Right?
No.
Oh, no? Doesn't have to be?
You don't have to be a member. You don't have to be a
Okay.
member to write a letter of recommendation. What I tell people is that they should be able to find these people online because they want to substantiate that they are actually working music professionals. From there, when you get your 2 recommendations, they'll link the 2 recommendations and you'll get invited to submit a candidate form or a candidate application form. And that's when you'll put in all of your credits, your work history, your bio, why you would be a great member of the Recording Academy. Basically, you're just adding everything that substantiates your music career, and you submit that. From there, we have what's called a peer review panel. So it takes about 3 or 4 months. So for March, April, May. It takes 3.5 months for them to go through all the applications and then invite the class of, which will be 2025, into the Recording Academy. The peer review panel literally reviews every application, and we normally get between 2,000 to 3,000 a year. So they read everything that people are writing and what they're saying, and they're for voting applicants, they're looking at your credits. They're looking at to make sure that you have a minimum of 12 credits in one area of expertise. That's like the baseline for voting membership into the Recording Academy. So they review all of the recommendations, they review your application, and they review your credits to make sure this is the work you do. And then late June, the letters go out inviting people into the Recording Academy, which is in time for you to submit for the next Grammy Awards. So it's the same way every year. March 1st is the deadline for applications. So all applications must be in by March 1st. I tell everyone it's not required, but I suggest that you get your recommendations in by February 15th, because they do actually read the recommendations before they send you the candidate application form. And the closer you get to the March 1st deadline, like that's when everyone just starts flooding the application portal, right? So they're reviewing around the clock, but you could get your candidate application form. I don't know where you would end up in the queue. You could get your candidate application form February 27th. It still has to be turned around by March 1st. So there's no extension because you got it back like a week and a half later. It's, you know, they are just going in order and reviewing every application. And it always gets busy after next week. People remember it's time to get your application in after the show. So it starts to get busy. So the earlier you get it in, the better. Also, just as an FYI, anybody that writes a recommendation can only write 2 per year. So people start running out of recommendations. I don't know if you've used both of yours already.
Yes, I have.
Okay, so members and non-members can only write 2 recommendations a year. So I always tell people do it as early as possible, because you're going to ask someone and they're going to say, I use both of mine. So June 21st, the invitations to join are sent out, and then July 14th is the deadline to accept your invitation and pay your fee, which is $150 a year for membership, to participate in OEP, which is online entry process. So that's the online entry process for Grammy consideration. And then September 15th is the deadline to accept your invitation to vote in round 1 of Grammy voting. You want anything to that?
Nah, I'm good.
Okay.
Another question, actually.
Sure.
You said about 3,000 or so people apply
Yeah.
that year?
2 to 3.
Do you know about what percentage of it actually, of them makes it into the recording academy?
You know, I don't have that statistic, but what I've been telling everyone is we don't try to keep you out. Like, it's whoever is qualified. Like, we're just trying to make sure you're qualified to be in. Like, it's not, it's a professional membership organization, so they just want to make sure that you're a full-time working music professional. That's really what they're looking at. They don't, it's not like we can have too many members. That's not a thing.
Right.
Theoretically, like, you could accept all 3,000,
Yeah,
essentially.
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So yeah, it's interesting because it's people, a lot of applications just get invalidated because they really don't have their credits. Like, so I'm gonna go through voting membership now. So I said earlier, you have to have a minimum, and I'm saying this is like baseline minimum of 12 credits in one area of expertise. So you have to have 12 producing credits, 12 engineering credits, 12 vocalist credits for them to even look at your application. So you can't submit 6 songwriting credits and 6 engineer credits and that'd be 12 credits. It's not enough. You have to have 12 in one area of expertise before they look at anything else. Then they're gonna look at your online profile. They're gonna look at your social media. Like, they're gonna look at your promotion. They're gonna look at LinkedIn. Sometimes they go look at LinkedIn to see if you're actually also doing, if you're actually like a bookkeeper or something. Like, they wanna make sure it's the music community. This is your full-time work. So they're just trying to substantiate your body of work and like how you present to the world professionally. So they're looking at your credits. They want to make sure that you're actually a current working music professional. So at least 6 of your credits have to be in the last 5 years. They're also looking like just who you enter. I mean, they're with your recommendation. That's how they're figuring out like how you participate in the community. And they're just looking to see if you're doing this now. So it's not like you have to be a superstar or anything. It's just, are you doing the work? And your music has to be on a third-party site. So it can't be your website and you have 12 tracks on your website. It has to be verified by a music industry professional.
Yeah. So it can be on, it doesn't just have to be on Spotify, like Bandcamp counts as well, sites like that.
Yeah. Okay. Professional membership is not the credits, but they're still looking for third-party sites. So they're looking, if you're a manager and say if you're Substantial's manager, like on his site he says, call such and such for bookings. They're looking to see that you are verified in other places than what you create. So they're looking at your LinkedIn, they're looking at just company websites, company email addresses. So they're just trying to verify that you are doing what you say you do. And you're not the only person saying that you do this work. So they're looking for people who work in direct service of music creators. So they're working to support the recording artists. And that's just relevant and working. It's really all that's it. It's not a certain amount of credits. They do look for professional for you to have done a certain amount of work. Like, you're not just starting year 1. Like, they want you to have a certain level of experience. Like, you know what I mean? So, how to credit a project. I'm gonna let you talk about this because Freddie created this because we found, and I don't know, this could be relevant for this community because there's certain areas like orchestras or choirs that like list people as a certain way, but you really have to have the individual credit. So,
Yeah.
You can talk about it.
So how many people in here have released any original music before or been a part of a project that's been released? All right, got a few. Okay, so we all have experienced moments where, like, we go on a streaming platform, we hear a song that's really great, and then a small percentage of us click to actually look at the credits. And you ever go there and notice that they didn't bother to fill out anything, right? Right. So in these moments when we're talking about opportunities like this, these people are damning you, right? They are not doing you any favors. So it's important to advocate for yourself to make sure that, like, if you've contributed to any project, even smaller things, right? Just making sure that they properly credit you. One of the things I do as an artist, I don't have it to show you here now, but this is useful not just for this process, but it's useful for distribution. It's useful for your publishing. It's also useful if you are blessed enough at some point to work with an administrator that will keep track of your publishing for you. But I literally have a spreadsheet that it goes down. It documents everything from main artist, song title, to the ISRC, to the UPC, address where it was recorded, address where it was mixed, the splits, the people's IPI numbers for their publishers and stuff like that. Like literally, I mean, it's like this long for every song I've ever done. I literally have over 800 credits. And so, so some of those are like songwriting credits, some are, performance credits, but then others, like I went to school for graphic design, so I have a ton of graphic design credits in the music industry too. Not just for my own work, but for other artists. And so I use sites like, there's a site called Muso.ai. It's not actual AI, but for whatever reason, that's what they use in their title. But I had to give that disclaimer. But they help keep track of all of the different credits that you have online, even things that are maybe miscredited. So occasionally you'll see your name pop up in someone else's release, and you had nothing to do with that. So, and sometimes that's because your name is similar to someone else's, or someone like sampled you and like had the nerve to put the name as like featuring you, and you had nothing to do with the track. That's happened to me a ton of times. So it's good to keep track of this stuff. The more organized you are, especially early in your career, it's going to help you so much long term for opportunities like this, for publishing, all of the different ways that a musician can collect money that most artists do not want to do the legwork to do. Like they don't want to do it.
Yeah, it's super important to make sure that it also, like when you do the credit, you follow through and make sure that the team, whoever's putting the music up, make sure your name is there, because that happens so much that people's names aren't in title. Like, I did that, I wrote that, and I'm like, but you ain't here.
Yeah.
So you gotta get it fixed, because I can't verify it. Literally, I've had someone write a song that was nominated for a Grammy, and the label didn't submit their name. They just submitted the artist. So it's like, you have to just stay on top of your stuff and make sure your name is where it's supposed to be, because we could have fixed it if we would have found it on the site. We also accept like BMI, ASCAP statements, like just anything that shows that you're working. So yeah, crediting is super to stay on top of, important. Absolutely. To stay on top of. This is just an example. This was a gospel production that we used. We always use an example because this gentleman, he has background singers. Some people would like, but a lot of gospel artists call their background singers choir. And choir is it's not an acceptable credit. Like, it has to be the group. So the name of his group is in here, and then he has the members of his group in here, so they can get credits if they want to be a voting member. And it only helps you. People gonna vote for their own project. So I don't know why people don't credit people.
It's super weird.
It's super weird. And these are all of the sites that we accept as verified music distributors. We can look on those places. If you submit your work from any of those sites, we will accept it as a credit. You do not, I keep notes on things I also want to make sure I don't forget, but reprises, remixes are not separate credits. So if you create a song and then you do a remix and it has to be over 50% of the music composition has to be new for it to be a different credit. So that's one thing. I just want to make sure you know about credits.
Does that also include acapellas?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Can we go back 2 slides real quick?
Sure.
I'd just like to snap a picture of the ideal way to do it. Thank you.
Of course.
Oh, sorry. Wait, no, that wasn't.
That was not it.
That one. There you go. Thank you.
On your application, I always remind people to, or when you have people writing your recommendations, to make sure the person that's writing your recommendation, that your emails match, because they're going to ask for your email. That's how we identify an applicant, because a lot of people have the same name. So the system will connect the two recommendations by email address, not by name. So make sure that they both are using the same address. People have called me and said, well, I have two recommendations in. You'll get an email that says, we received your first recommendation. And then sometimes somebody will get we receive your first recommendation again. I was like, okay, well, y'all email addresses aren't matching. So that's what happens. So then I have to go, it takes more time, then I gotta go connect them. It's a whole thing. $150, that's it. And then also, you can apply every year. So if it doesn't work out the first year, you can apply again. There's no, you don't have to wait a certain amount of time before you apply again, as long as you have the credits. I always tell people also, if you qualify for professional membership, apply for professional membership. Because you can transfer at any time to voting membership. You don't have to wait for the new cycle of membership class to change your type of membership. So I have a lot of educators. I'm like, oh, well, if you teach, just go on and get in, and then we'll work on your credits, and then you could transfer membership in October if you have enough credits to become a voting member. So, that's it. Yeah. Are there any questions?
Go ahead.
So I'm an indie game developer, so I do some music direction and planning, but I'm not a musician myself.
Okay.
One thing I learned about at a different panel here was that there are a lot of nonprofit organizations who will invest in the creation of a game if it aligns with their mission statement.
Mm-hmm.
For example, I'm making a game that's about reimagining and preserving and promoting public domain stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So taking culture and keeping it alive in a way. And I was curious, naturally that includes music in the scope of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I was curious if there's any connection between the Grammy Museum initiatives and any sort of, arts investment that might fit what I'm doing.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah, there may be, but I don't know that I've heard of I don't know what gaming work they've done. Say it one more time exactly what you're doing so I can.
So I'm making a game that it's like a crossover game between a bunch of public domain characters and worlds. And so I'm connecting public domain music and compositions and sound recordings to locations that are thematically similar,
okay.
and creating leitmotifs that are applicable to a given character's story.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And so
Trying to see it.
I'm digging deep into a lot of forgotten music, basically.
Right.
Trying to re-promote it in the present.
So you're trying to see if the museum would potentially have any type of interest in or opportunities for people who are doing something similar.
Right.
Because I guess the overlap would be you're trying to preserve music and other things that have entered public domain, right? That oftentimes has been forgotten because of how old it is. So seeing if there's I don't know off the top of my head if they do, but I definitely see how one could work with the other. And so that's something that I guess we just got to dig into.
Yeah, that's something we would have to explore, because I don't know what they're doing, and I don't, in terms of cultural impact, do you feel like those songs that you're working with had significant?
I think the more so the ones that I'm digging back up, I think probably had less cultural significance because, I think typically it's fair to say the most significant things have persevered the most.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
So.
An idea though. Here's an idea for you though. Sometimes the thing has some cultural relevance, not necessarily because the thing itself became super big, but because it was a point of reference for something else.
Right.
So maybe like if you find, like if you're using things that are somehow connected in that way, that might be a path to I guess connecting the dots there, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the advantages of sampling. I know like, you know, people definitely have strong opinions and feelings depending on what side of it you are, but one of the great things about sampling is oftentimes songs that have been forgotten, things that, you know, it was a very small audience for that particular thing. When these things take off, all of a sudden, now people care more about this thing from the past that was very much, didn't get a lot of love in that particular time frame, but now has more cultural relevance because of what the artist brought to it when they used it, you know. Yeah, no
I just
problem.
wrote myself a note to see if what they've done and what work they've done in the space.
For
You're
sure.
welcome.
Any other questions?
Are there any specific policy goals that the Recording Academy has in 2025 in terms of labor and workers' rights? Is that something under attack?
Always, but if they're focused on, right now, I know the platform this year that they're working on is payments, just payments through streaming, AI protections, and the RAP Act, protecting creators' rights in criminal hearings. Like, those are the three that I know this chapter specifically we're working on. No, because I haven't heard of anything like labor rights. It's more, they're focused more on making sure artists get paid. You know, there's so many individual, like the way that people create is so unique in every scenario, small group settings, like in more independent artists. So we do a lot of work on like studio, like protecting people in studios and like making sure that everyone feels safe. But yeah, that's the most of the work we're doing.
And I was going to add some context to the how familiar are you all with some of the challenges around payment, some of the challenges around the RAP Act, and also the situations with AI? Like how, right, got it. So one of the most interesting facts that I learned while working with the Grammys was just the sheer amount of music that's been created with AI. What was it? Over a century of music created within 3 to 4 years?
That's crazy.
That's insane. That's really insane. And so, you know, just to think that, like, so when we talk about, like, you know, so maybe this isn't exactly what people think of when we think of like workers' rights, but to know that like this technology comes along and the amount of time that you've put, like the last album, full-length album I released, it took me roughly 3 or 4 years to make. You know what I mean? And then like even when you know, they tell you to do a Kickstarter campaign in 30 days, of course, I'm a glutton for punishment. I did mine in 45. You know what I mean? I'm just extending it, you know, just making, let me deal with this some more. So like just the amount of time you put into all of these things. And so just to know that, you know, I can put in some prompts and do this in seconds or minutes, you know what I mean? Roughly, you know, I'm sure that's great to someone, but to people who already deal with the headache, like if we go over to like payment, what Spotify's doing, where they basically have changed it, where if you don't get 1,000 plays within a year, they no longer have to pay you for that song. And it doesn't roll over into the next year. The next year, it just starts all over again. So they keep your money. And so that might not sound like a huge deal because the 1,000 plays is only about $4. But to think about the sheer amount of artists who that applies to, and let's say they all are just shy, like I mean 999 plays. So that's $4 from the bulk of the artists that are on streaming platforms, right? A good majority of them don't hit 1,000 plays. A ridiculous amount of artists do not reach that number. So now you take that pool of artists and add that number up that we're talking about. And there's no coincidence that once they introduced that, they found their first year of profitability. Right? So it's really, really crazy what's happening, and it's legal. And when I like one of the meetings I sat in on Advocacy Day explaining this to a person, and I was like, would that be legal in any other setting? Okay, just checking, just checking, because literally there are this isn't hearsay, right? There are actual stories that you can read that are happening in places like Sweden and stuff like that, where they're using streaming and like the bots and all of these different things to fund organized crime, all types of shady stuff. Fam, I'm not the conspiracy theory guy. I'm telling you about actual cases that exist and all of these different things, how it's being leveraged in really shady ways. That is really going unpoliced and unchecked for the most part, because I think people feel like it's a victimless crime, you know what I mean? But it's really bad. It's really bad what's happening. So we're hyper aware of it, and we do our best to kind of just keep folks informed. And of course, we were talking about, she mentioned the RAP Act as well. Just protecting your creativity. Like you could tell a graphic story, right? Like, so let's imagine the game that he's created. And let's say if there's a graphic part of the game where there's something violent that happens, right? And then in real life, a crime takes place and happens kind of in the fashion of what happens in the game, right? Like, so imagine if you did that in your music and then someone tries to hold you liable for what ended up happening, but you had no direct connection to that. You didn't do the thing yourself, or even if it happened around you, but there was like, we're seeing cases where they're literally getting up there reading their lyrics and like, well, he said this, he said that, he also said this, so he's clearly got to be guilty. It's like, well, that's not actually what happened in the real life situation. It does say that he has a very graphic imagination, but that doesn't necessarily mean he needs to do jail time if you're not putting Arnold Schwarzenegger and a long list of other people whose body count on film is pretty impressive, if that's the appropriate word to use. So, anyway.
Oh, so go ahead. No, go ahead. And then we'll go to you.
Yeah.
Are there any ways that like an organization like yours would think about encouraging their members to act in solidarity, like with the general workers' strike that the UAW is calling for in 2028?
Can you tell us, I'll speak for myself. Can you explain what's going on with it?
So the United Auto Workers is calling for basically all unionized workers to ask their organizations to have their current contracts cease in 2028 so that everyone is in a position to withdraw their labor in a global strike.
Wow.
And is there a way that artists and other creatives could think about withdrawing their, I guess their product, since what they're making money from is, like you said, these recordings, so that they will be in the same like solidarity worldwide?
I think theoretically there's probably is, but everyone's situation is different. Like there's no union.
Yeah.
Right.
For our work. So, it depends on like what label deals already in place, whatever, like independent artists has done.
Yeah, because it's different for indie artists than it is for majors. So there's a lot of,
And
anything's possible, but to say it would be challenging is a gross understatement.
Exactly.
Just because that's, I think, one of the biggest issues we have with getting everyone on the same page in the music industry, is because how different the deals are depending on where you are in your situation, But no, it's definitely something to think about for sure.
I didn't know that was happening.
Yeah, the same. Yes, sir. Appreciate your patience.
Maybe a bit of change of pace here. I know earlier on in the presentation you mentioned that, one of the benefits of membership is not only just doing the regular voting, but suggesting new categories and stuff. It's applicable because, VGM is a relatively new category. And I'm curious if you could, speak more to that whole process. Like, how does category choice happen? What did video games in particular need to do, and how that is growing?
What happened was it was a local board member that ended up on the board of trustees, for the most part, that took the time and collected the data to write the proposal. So you have to be able to show like that there's enough release work in an area, cultural impact, why it's important for us to celebrate this work. So it's like a form, but you literally have to fill out you give them the explanation of why this should be an award. And so, I mean, you know, music and gaming has been around for a long time.
Forever.
And it's so, it's, what's the word I'm looking for? But it's so necessary for the whole game to work. Like it's a part, it's a very important part of
Integral.
gaming. Yeah. So, so, and I think, I mean, they were able to show historically for years that this work is being put out every year, and it's a different genre to a certain extent. Like it's a different nuance and different skill to create this music. So it's really like you get a form, you start building your argument. It's like what are your thesis, your PhD, but not as elaborate. But like you literally put together the argument of why this should be here,
Right.
And you know. And so that's what they did. And it literally, these proposals are debated. I don't think this one had much of a, like, once it was presented, they were like, okay, y'all
it's
are
a
right.
no-brainer.
Like, you know what I'm saying? But some, like, there's back and forth. It takes years to get things across the finish line. So, but the gaming one, I feel like once it was written, it was
pretty
implemented.
easy. Yeah.
It was voted in.
I mean, think about like some of the biggest games all time. Like if I just sat here and just dropped like some of the biggest game names, and then just threw a cue to all of you to start humming the song, like this would not be difficult, right? Like that's how like much a part of the game the music is, right? Like whether we're talking about the first Mario Brothers game, or if I say Tetris, you know what I mean? Like speaking of Tetris, if you have not seen the Tetris movie on Apple TV,
I'll watch it.
did anyone here see it? Have you seen it?
No, I said I'll watch it.
Oh yeah, please watch that movie, cause yeah, man.
Yes.
Oh man, it's oh my God, it's so good. It's really good. But the music and the sound design and music in that film it's just proof of what we're talking about right now, you know.
But to that point also, that's why it's important for music gaming professionals to be in the Recording Academy. If he hadn't been in that room, might not have happened. Still
Yeah.
might not be an award, right? So it's important to have members of all music styles in the Recording Academy. So
100%.
yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah, appreciate you guys. Any other questions? We're still here for like 15 minutes, you know. We don't have to look at each other and be all awkward. You know? You know? So, I guess I know in the beginning I said my name, but I didn't really specify what my role in the academy is, and or kind of talk about you know, credits or different things like that. But so I'm a governor in the DC chapter, and so that means I'm a part of the board. But even before that, as a voting member, just how like the whole courting process, and I think I told you the story yesterday of how they got me.
How many years have you been a member?
Oh man, I think officially it was 2014.
10 years.
Yeah, so 10 years at this point. But they were courting me. I forget the sister's name. I think she's from Baltimore.
Kanisha.
Yeah, Kanisha. Yeah, Kanisha was at me. She was like, she was definitely getting at me, and I was the typical underground rapper and stuff. You know, like hip hop started out as counterculture, right? So what happens when counterculture becomes the culture, right? And so like when they were coming to me, I'm like, man, first of all, rap is like an oversaturated category. And now they're trying to break it up. They have different types of rap that's being acknowledged and stuff. And there's this one thing that they're throwing around now about like adult contemporary hip hop, but then there's even disagreement on that because like that doesn't specify a particular sound, right? Like, and so we need to figure out what the sound is, not just all the old people in this section. You know what I mean?
And then someone would have to write a proposal.
And then someone has to write a proposal. So I think as soon as we find the language for that,
Y'all working on that?
I've been quietly. So I built this playlist a minute ago called Soulful Hip Hop. You know, and there is definitely a lane where there's a ton of hip hop that kind of fits that soul model, where like what's talked about, like when we think of soul music, not like R&B, but like soul music and certain themes that are consistently in soul music, right? Because I know they oftentimes group soul and R&B, but I would argue like, you know, there's a difference. Like I think of an R&B album and it's love songs mostly, top to bottom, right? Where a soul album, I think of like Marvin Gaye can do R&B, right? But then when he does What's Going On, that feels more like soul versus like you know, Let's Get It On. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? That's more R&B, right. You know, so I think the same kind of applies in hip hop. And the beautiful thing, like when we talk about what soulful hip hop is, I feel like, you know, I don't know, I'm still wrapping my brain around. I'm saying too much publicly on camera, but yeah.
Definitely cut that part.
Yeah. So, but anyway, so more about, you know, the other thing is, you know, I've been coming to MAGFest, God knows how long, but that process for me, it initially started with trying to get me in, and I was just the underground hip hop dude. Like, I don't need to be a part of the establishment. But then they started talking to me about, you know, I think the mistake that was maybe made early on was a lot was talked about the voting, right, for me, and I think because of how I worked as an educator and a lot of what I was trying to do with my music, it wasn't necessarily the draw. But then when I started getting invited to the events and I saw the sense of community, and then I saw the exposure that we got as members to like technology that was coming down the pipeline and the education piece around that, right? The community part and the education part around that. And then when I found out about the advocacy work, I was like, man, you had me at hello. If we started there, I think for certain artists, those things are a bit more appealing. But of course, like the voting part is sexy too. You know, it's, you know, because yeah, it is. And it's just like, you love seeing your people from your community come close to getting that. And especially because I think the public has this idea of what it means to win a Grammy and the politics around it and who votes on what. But I think once you're in it, you realize that all of these people were vetted. All of these people who voted, they all do this full time. This is their life. And these are truly your peers. So that, like, definitely, when I learned that definitely had a profound effect on my opinion of it all. And especially how it works now, where now we can't just vote on everything, right? Like, you have to pick what categories. I think it's like 3 sections, right? Like that.
310 rule.
Yeah, 310 rule. So now you can't just vote on anything. Like, so somebody who really knows like a specific genre that maybe they don't really listen to anything like rap related or R&B related or jazz related. They're more in the classical side. Well, no, because jazz and classical fall in
The same.
Yeah. But
Fields.
Right.
Categories fields.
Yeah. So, but my point is, you can't just vote on everything. You got to really be specific and be like, all right, I'm gonna focus on these areas here. And when you know that, it makes you a bit more confident about your chances, and who's listening to the stuff and who's giving their opinion on that. So yeah, it's not what people think. And so I love the part of being able to explain that to the public and people who are thinking about it. Just really kind of finding the young me's and being like, yeah, nah, it ain't what you think, fam. I know, I was once you. But yeah. Oh, the credits thing. So video game folks, clearly you're here. Arc Nights, I've done a lot of music for Arc Nights, maybe 6 songs for that game alone. I recently had the pleasure of working directly with Grant Kirkhope for my Donkey Kong fans and stuff, and GoldenEye fans. And we did the new version of DK Rap that just came out last year. So I know a lot of people loved it the way it was, but there's a lot of these folks that forget how it was really viewed by most people, especially those of us who know real rap. So I tried to walk the line and make it in a way that those of us who respect the art of emceeing and like real rap you can feel it, and then those of us who know the game also can be like, oh, that's cool. Oh, I see the reference. Oh, okay. And I had the unique opportunity to produce the new one and get the sample grant, like, but not just sample songs he already made, but he literally, I sent him the foundation of the beat, and then he just he started jamming over it and gave me a whole bunch of riffs to work with. And so that was amazing, man, because that dude's a legend. So, but yeah, worked on those. Did 2 different songs for PUBG Mobile, Mobile Legends, Bang Bang, a couple of different indie games like Bread and Fred. Yeah, I probably have somewhere between 15 or 20 video game music credits at this point. So 15 to 20, somewhere like that. I'm old. I've been around the block a couple times. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, man. Yes, sir.
So I think you guys mentioned something like you're the part of the Recording Academy in the DC area, and I was curious, like how is it sort of subdivided geographically? I guess is it like
Great question.
New chapter every state? Is it like regional?
So regional, so I can do the map. New York, Philly, DC, Memphis, Nashville, Atlanta, Florida, Texas, Chicago, Pacific Northwest, San Francisco, LA. But like Chicago chapter has probably 8 states. So
Right.
it's we really should be calling it regional. I always say we're the Mid-Atlantic chapter, but they use cities and then they base it around there. So LA, like the LA chapter also is Las Vegas. It's weird. But we're DC, Maryland, Virginia,
Phoenix,
West Virginia.
right? Like Arizona as well, right? It was in the LA
Yeah.
chapter.
Do you know where Boston is? I'm from Boston.
So that would be a New York chapter.
The
It's
New York chapter.
yeah.
Right. Sorry. Right. I know how your teams do, so it's like I guess I got to make the peace. Coming there wearing a Sox hat, Yankee fans walk in. Yeah.
He does go. That my peer in New York always goes up to Boston.
Yeah. And then I know this gentleman here is North Carolina, right? Yeah. Where would?
So North Carolina folks, North and South Carolina folks pick like where community they identify with most. So so like we have a significant amount of North Carolina. We don't really have South Carolina, but South Carolina the Carolinas normally split between us, Nashville, and Memphis.
And I was asking you yesterday, substantial. Do you need recommendations going to be for anyone ever anywhere, or does it have to be geographic?
Oh no, anywhere. Yeah. And you can live anywhere globally. You can live, but your music just has to be released in the United States. Yeah.
Yep. All right.
That's it.
Yeah. Thank y'all so much.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate you for coming.
Hope you had a great festival.
All right.